Periodicity of repulsion. The relative ability of the elements to repel is in the same order. The first radiational tone is 1-, the fluorine line. The second radiational tone is 2-, the oxygen line. The third radiational tone is 3-, the nitrogen line. The same relatively repellent order regarding mid-tonal pressure walls prevails on the female side of 4++ as on the male side. The planes of these opposing pressure walls vary from 0 degrees at 0-, to 90 degrees at 4++. 1+ and 1- are absolutely parallel to each other, likewise 2+ and 2-, and 3+ and 3- in each wave. But in each half of the wave, the pressure walls oppose the opposite halves of the adjoining waves. The plane of the double tone 4++ in the 5th octave is at an angle of 90 degrees to the south inertial and secondary vertical planes of their cubes, and is parallel to the primary vertical plane. The other 4++ positions approximate these relations. The relations of the planes of the tonal pressure walls is of vast importance, and together they form one of the most important of the dimensions. If there is such incontrovertible evidence that the ability of mass to appear to attract and to repel mass is but relative because of the variation of states of motion within each mass, is it not better to rewrite the law as it has been suggested at the beginning of this chapter? This way, every mass has the apparent relative ability to attract and to repel every other mass, its relative ability depending on its relative potential. Next chapter is gravitation and radiation. Gravitation is the generative force, and radiation is the degenerative force of the universal constant. These are the opposing powers which, within all mass, seek an equilibrium zone of pressure for the potential of that mass. Gravitation is the generative force of increasing potential and the regenerative force of decreasing potential. It is the power within the electric force of action to attract the electric force of action. It is the contractive power within electricity to divert the universal constant of energy into centrifugal vortexes of closing spirals of increasing speed, thereby attracting similar states of motion into an accumulation of mass, the pressures of which increases toward its center. It is an expression of the power of electricity to accumulate by induction, and, by so doing, to force magnetism to increase its resistance to that accumulation. It is the inductive force. It is the desire within the electric force of action to integrate into the appearance of form. It is the power of electricity to associate by displacement. Radiation is the power of magnetism to disassociate by replacement. Radiation is the degenerative force of decreasing potential. It is the power within the magnetic force of reaction to resist the electric force of action. It is the separative force which repels, spreads, separates, diffuses, and redistributes that which has been assembled by the collective force. It is the conductive force. The attraction of gravitation and the repulsion of radiation is nature's simple method of distribution and redistribution of all masses, so that each mass will find its proper position. It is not proper to conceive either of these apparently opposite forces as two forces. The south wind and the north wind are not two winds, they are the same wind, blowing in opposite directions. It is more correct to say that gravitation and radiation are processes. The one motive force which directs these processes is equally divided into opposite effects, but these opposite effects are unequally balanced. The unequal divisions of the two opposites totaled together constitute an equilibrium. The one force never subdivides into any minus expression of force without counterbalancing that minus with an equal and opposite plus. Gravitation is a synthetic process of putting things together, and radiation is an analytical one of taking them apart. The chemist uses these processes in every action and reaction. Consider, for example, the reduction of iron oxide at high temperatures by passing a jet of hydrogen over it. What happens? The hydrogen falls toward the higher potential of the oxygen of the iron, which is sufficiently expanded by the high temperature to absorb the hydrogen, and the hot iron is sufficiently expanded to release the oxygen. This is an effect of gravitation in respect to the oxygen and the hydrogen. They unite, they mutually integrate, and freeze into amorphous crystals of such extended orbits that they assume the liquid state known as water. On the contrary, it is an effect of radiation in respect to the iron and the oxygen. Both the iron and the oxygen have been brought to such a state of expansion that their ability to hold together is gradually weakened until their pressure preponderance is reversed. Attraction has changed to repulsion. The iron expels the oxygen, which falls toward the proper pressure zone for so expanded a state of motion. The oxidation process is an effect of the electric pressure of gravitation. The reduction process is an effect of the magnetic pressure of radiation. They exactly balance. The reduction in valence, pressure, temperature, and other dimensions of the iron is balanced by an exact increase of the dimensions of the hydrogen oxide. The plus of gravitation in any mass is always balanced by the minus of radiation in some other mass, in accordance with the pressure laws. Every pressure develops an equal and opposite pressure, and the degeneration of any mass is exactly balanced by the regeneration of another mass. All mass is constantly in motion. This is a universe of perpetual motion. The universal constant of energy is expressed by mass in motion. Every mass is continually changing its dimensions in accordance with its relation to every other mass. Change in the position of mass causes change of every dimension of that mass. All mass is potential out of place, and all mass constantly seeks the proper pressure zones for its changing potential. All mass constantly runs the entire gamut of every dimension of the wave of energy of which it is a swirling part, until it has run the entire cycle represented by that wave. No mass can remain fixed in position, not even that which has been apparently arrested in its motion. The apple, obeying the law of gravitation, falls to the ground to seek the pressures for its relatively high potential, where it is apparently arrested in its motion. In reality, it never ceases to fall until it has reached the center of the planet. It merely changes its dimensions. The disintegrating apple rises in the air to seek the proper pressures by the relatively low potential left behind by the electric stream which continued to the gravitative center of the planet. Like all mass, the apple is simultaneously accumulating and distributing its accumulation of energy. It is both charging and discharging. The interruption of the apple's fall to the Earth's center and subsequent reversal of the charge within the mass of the disintegrating apple does not alter the opposite directions of motion either for the charge or for the discharge. The accumulated electric potential continues spirally north by way of east in the electric stream to the planet's center, and the disintegrating emanations continue south by way of west